这个故事如果你听起来不累，那么你的听力水平在生活中是完全够用的。要持续提升英文，记得点击订阅按钮。我们开始吧。
You ever hear a phrase that feels like a tiny door, and once you push it open, a whole strange world is waiting behind it? Get one's goat is one of those phrases. It sounds funny the first time you hear it. It feels soft and silly. But the first time I learned where it came from, the story hit like a quiet punch. People once believed goats could calm nervous racehorses. That idea alone feels like a secret from another time. Picture the stables at dawn. Cold air. Soft steps on dusty floors. A tired horse, shaking a little. And next to it, a small goat, just standing there like it knows what it's doing. The goat's warm breath. Its slow blinking. Its quiet presence. Somehow the horse eases. Somehow it works. Now imagine this. A big race is coming up. Someone wants the horse to lose. They don't touch the horse. They don't poison the food. They do something simpler. They sneak in at night. They take the goat. When the horse wakes and finds the goat gone, it grows restless, pacing, sweating, stomping. On race day, the horse runs like its mind is somewhere else. And that's how a stolen goat became a small act of sabotage. That old trick left behind a phrase people now use without thinking. That gets my goat. He really got her goat. But the story behind it still feels alive. It feels sharp. It feels like a reminder that sometimes the thing that breaks us is small, quiet, sneaky. Not a blow. Not a storm. Just one missing piece. I remember the first time someone used the phrase on me in real life. I was maybe 10. My friend Mark poked at me during lunch, tapping his spoon against his tray, a tiny sound, fast and steady. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like nothing. But it burrowed into my head. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think. At some point he looked at me and said, almost proud, "Does this get your goat?" I didn't know the phrase yet. But I knew the feeling. My whole chest felt tight. It felt like someone had reached into my calm place and lifted it away. I didn't know then that it had anything to do with stables or horses or missing goats. But now that I do, the memory feels different. It feels heavier. Because I think everyone has a goat. Something that keeps them steady. Something that keeps their thoughts from running wild. And maybe that's why this old phrase survived. Because we all know what it's like when someone sneaks in and takes it. The funny thing is that the story doesn't end in one place. It moves. It changes. Some say the phrase grew in American stables. Some say it came from old world farms. Some say it wasn't about racing at all. But the version that stuck with me is the one with the racehorse. The quiet stable. The one calm creature that makes the difference. And when you imagine that goat being taken, the phrase suddenly stops sounding cute. It becomes a little tragic. A little tense. A little too close to real life. There's a part of the story that people forget. A detail that feels small, but once you notice it, the whole picture sharpens. The goat never fights back. It doesn't kick or cry out. It just lets itself be taken. Quiet. Still. Almost gentle. And maybe that's why the trick worked so well. The horse never heard a struggle. It just woke up to an empty space. That empty space is something we all know. The kind that shows up without warning. When someone says a word that hits too hard. When a plan falls apart. When you lose something you didn't even know you were depending on. That's the real heart of the phrase. Not anger. Not annoyance. Loss. A small, sharp loss. There's an old rumor that jockeys used to tell each other before races. Watch your goat. They meant it literally. Check the stall. Lock the door. Don't assume what calms your horse will stay put. But it sounded like something deeper, like advice for life. Watch what keeps you steady. Guard it. Don't let anyone walk away with it in the dark. One trainer from those days wrote in his notes that he kept his goat close because the horse slept better when it could hear the soft crunch of hay at night. He said the goat's chewing was like a lullaby. I love that detail. Something as simple as chewing could settle a powerful animal meant to run like the wind. A tiny sound. A tiny comfort. Something almost too small to notice until it's gone. You can see the pattern, right? A phrase that starts in a dusty stable grows into something people everywhere use when they feel poked, pushed, bothered. But when you peel back the surface, the story underneath is gentler and sadder. It's not about loud frustration. It's about that moment when you feel yourself slipping because the world pulled away one quiet anchor you didn't even know you were leaning on. There's another story connected to this phrase, a quieter one that isn't in many books. A young stable boy once wrote about a horse named Clover. Clover was fast but anxious. She shook before every race. So they gave her a goat named Sunny. Sunny would nuzzle Clover's legs. Sleep near her. Walk with her. A tiny partner. They said Clover never ran well without Sunny by her side the night before. One night Sunny disappeared. The stable boy panicked. He searched the whole barn with a lantern shaking in his hand. When he found Sunny tied behind the hay shed, he untied the rope with tears in his eyes. Not because he cared so deeply for the goat, but because he could already picture Clover trembling alone in the stall. He whispered to the goat, "They almost got her goat," which might be one of the earliest times the phrase was spoken the way we use it now. When Sunny trotted back into the stall, Clover pressed her nose against the goat's neck. The boy stood there for a minute, watching the quiet reunion, the soft breathing, the stillness returning. He wrote that moment down. That's how we know it happened. And I like to think that somewhere in that stable, in that fragile silence, the phrase grew a second meaning. A meaning about comfort, connection, and the small things that keep us from falling apart. There's something strange about how a phrase travels from a dusty stall to a kitchen table, a classroom, a bus stop, a late-night phone call. Words wander. They slip into new mouths. They pick up new meanings. Somewhere along the way, Get one's goat stopped being about horses and races and secret tricks. It became about people. About how easily someone can push us off balance with a small act, a look, a sound, a joke that lands a little too hard. I started noticing the phrase everywhere once I learned its story. A neighbor muttering it while trying to fix a lawnmower that refused to start. A kid saying it when her brother hit her favorite pencil. A woman whispering it after someone cut in line at the grocery store. Each time, it meant the same thing. Something tiny had tugged at the calm inside them. And maybe that's why the phrase survived 100 years. Because the feeling survived. We're all just trying to stay steady. We build our days on small routines. A warm cup. A quiet moment. A familiar sound. A soft presence. Something our minds lean on without asking permission. Something that feels as simple and as fragile as a goat in a stall. There was a moment a few years back that brought this old phrase to life for me in a new way. I was working late. Long day. Cold coffee. Heavy air. I got home and found my place too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but hollow quiet. I couldn't figure out why. Then I realized my old radio, the one that usually hums softly in the background every night, had finally died. It wasn't loud, wasn't important, wasn't special. But its sound kept me steady. Without it, the room felt different. My thoughts ran a little faster. My chest sat a little tighter. It hit me out of nowhere. Someone had gotten my goat. Not a person. Not even on purpose. Just a small missing thing I never thought mattered. And suddenly the phrase felt truer than ever. Sometimes the goat isn't a friend. Or a habit. Or a routine. Sometimes it's something inside you. A piece of calm you don't notice until it's gone. The more I thought about it, the more I realized we all have something like that. Something that keeps us from shaking before our own big races. And maybe the real danger isn't that someone will steal it. Maybe it's that we don't protect it. We leave the stall door open. We forget to check the shadows. We assume the things that hold us together can hold themselves. If you've ever felt thrown off by something tiny and strange, if you've ever felt your thoughts running wild over something small, you're not alone. Everyone has a goat. Everyone has felt the empty space where it used to be. Everyone has known that moment when balance slips and you can't quite explain why. And that's why the story still matters. Not because of horses or races or old stables. But because those small anchors, those simple, steady things, shape our days far more than we admit. And when they disappear, even for a moment, our minds feel it. Our hearts feel it. Our steps change. So next time something gets under your skin, slows you down, or shakes your calm, think of the quiet goat in the dawn light. Think of how soft presence can steady a running heart. Think of how small comfort can shape a whole day. And maybe you'll see the moment not as a failure, not as a weakness, but as a signal. A reminder to guard what keeps you grounded. A reason to look around and ask yourself a simple, honest question: what's your goat, and are you watching it?
能以非母语者的身份专注学习到现在， 这本身就是很棒的进步，真诚感谢你的观看。如果你觉得本期内容实用，点赞或留言让我知道你的想法，这对我持续创作非常重要。我们下期见。